Hi, this is Bastiaan, and this is a game I played against free chess engine GNU 507, which is rated at 2520. So I'm playing white. I'm starting with g3, and black plays f5, and now I'm playing e4, which is a gambit. So pawn can take pawn, which was played. Now I'm going to develop in order to recapture the pawn. Knight to c3. There are two defenses. Pawn d5 or knight to f6. GNU plays knight to f6, and I can continue to develop in order to recapture with bishop to g3. But in playing gambit style, there's no point in sacrificing a pawn and then just developing all the time in order to recapture the pawn. The real spirit of gambit play is to sacrifice a pawn in order to create an open playing field and to develop minor pieces quickly with king hands. So at this point I'm not going to play bishop g2, which is fine to recapture the pawn, but I'm going to play d3 instead, abandoning the pawn. So now we're seeing a true gambit. Pawn takes pawn and bishop recaptures. So I'm down one pawn, but I have two pieces developed and created an open playing field for my other minor pieces. Black takes control of the center with e5. So I play aggressively with f4. Of course, if pawn takes pawn, I can continue development of the minor pieces or play queen e2 check first, which would help white. But black does not recapture, plays bishop b4 instead, getting ready to castle and putting a pin on my knight. So I take the pawn, and black plays queen to e7. So I'm attacking the knight, but there's a pin on my unprotected king. So I play queen e2 to counter. Now of course I'm threatening pawn takes knight, so the knight has to move. Knight to d5, two attackers on my knight on c3, and only one defender. And even if pawn recaptures, I'm ending up with double pawns on the c-file, isolated double pawns. But I'm just continuing the attack with queen h5 check. Now black cannot play g6 because of bishop takes pawn check, and if pawn recaptures, queen takes rook check. And black cannot play queen to f7 in order to protect, because then I can play queen takes queen check, king takes queen, then bishop to c4 will create a pin on the knight. If takes takes, c6 to protect the knight, then knight to e2, and I can castle. White will be much better. Of course, GNU Chess isn't going to play that and plays the only sensible move, king to d8, and it looks like an odd move because now king and queen are on the same diagonal, and I have a bishop on c1, but bishop g5 cannot be played because of knight f6, and pawn cannot recapture because of the pin on the queen, which would be a good defense for black. And if bishop takes knight, check, recapture, pawn takes bishop, castle long, queen takes c5, queen takes queen, pawn takes. Black is still much better, and white is left with nothing. So after queen to e7, I play knight g to e2, which creates protection for the knight on c3, but also removes the spin on the king. Black plays h6 in order to prevent bishop to g5, which is now possible. So I castle. Knight takes knight, and knight recaptures. Now, if you take a look at the position, we might think about playing rook to f7, but if rook f7 to threaten the queen, black can simply play knight takes knight check, bishop recaptures, then queen e8, and the bishop can fall back on e7, and again white's attack has fizzled out and white is left with nothing, so that doesn't seem to work. So best is just to recapture the knights on c3, bishop recaptures and pawn recaptures, so I'm left with double pawns, but it's not too big a deal because I'm going to hunt for the enemy king. I can just ignore the double pawns on the c file. It's all about speed and piece developments at this point. Knight c6. So we're seeing two attackers on the pawn, one defender. Now, can we play bishop g5? If bishop g5 is played, black can simply play queen takes bishop, take. So this doesn't work. So we need a support move. h4 is played. Now, if at this point black wastes a move with say a6, we can see the point of h4. We can play bishop to g5, and now the queen cannot recapture because if queen takes, then pawn will take, and if pawn recaptures, queen takes rook check, which will be made in a few turns. So after h4, black plays rook to g8, so there's no longer a pin on the h file, so there's no longer a threat of bishop to g5, because simply pawn takes bishop. I continue with bishop to f4 to support the pawn on e5. This also frees up the rook. Rook goes to f8. Rook 8 to d1. So the rook goes to the half open file, opposite of the king. Also possible is rook to e1 on the half open file, opposite to the queen. So both make nice targets. Black plays queen c5 check, so I have to move my king. Knight to e7, and this is a tactical blunder by black. So the game was equal at this point, but knight to e7 blocks the king on the 8th rank. So I have threats of a back rank mate, and I can immediately take advantage with bishop takes pawn, gaining eventually 2 free pawns on the GNH file. Now of course black cannot play pawn takes bishop because of rook takes check and mate. Black cannot play rook takes rook because rook takes rook and the threat remains. So black plays queen c6 check with the fork. So I have to move my king again, but the threat just remains. Black cannot take on the bishop because of the same reason. It will end in a mate. So the rook has to move to e8, preventing rook f8 checkmate. But this gives me one tempo, and I can capture the second pawn on g7. And this not only gives me a pawn advantage, but also opens up the playing field for all my minor pieces to come in with mating threats. Black continues with rook to g8. If black were to play a normal move, let's say a6, which wasn't played, I have a threat with queen takes rook check, king recaptures forced, then simply rook f8 checkmate. So that's the main threat, and black has to deal with it. So he plays rook to g8 to prevent queen takes rook. Now he's threatening, of course, the bishop in some cases, but he cannot move his rook from the 8th rank because of mating threats at this point. But the rook is temporarily safe on g8. Bishop to h7. Now there's no place for the rook to escape to, and black will lose his rook. So queen takes a pawn, and I take the rook on g8. Queen takes pawn, check, king goes to h3. Now of course f8 will lead to mate, and black needs to open up his king sides quickly. He plays d6 in order to escape to d7 with the king, but the simple e6 prevents that. So c6 is played, but this weakens his king side. The rook on d1 is now becoming a threat. So I can play rook takes on d6, which is fine, or rook to f8 check. But even better is take advantage of the pin of the rook and put more pressure on the d6 pawn. So queen e5 was played. Black plays in desperation queen takes rook, which is replaced by my second rook. Bishop takes pawn check, so these are desperation moves to prolong the checkmate. So I recapture. Knight c8 to protect the pawn, but there is no defense to the mate. I can simply crash through. There are other ways as well, of course. Rook takes check. If knight takes, he gets queen check and mate. So black plays king c7 instead, but in just a few more moves. Rook d7 check, king b6 forced, queen b2 check, king a6, queen b7 check, bishop check, and finally queen a6, or b4 or b3 will lead to mate. That's my game against GNU Chess. I hope you like this game using gambit style. Thanks for watching and have a great evening.